Hi, this is Dr. Parikh, and we are writing our introduction outline. So this is here in the APA paper template. You got the introduction. I have a sample. I may update that in time. This is one of the sections that I'm changing a little bit. I'm cutting a paragraph out and kind of combining a couple things. I think it will make the writing easier, and I think it will fit better with expectations of later papers. But as you're looking at sample papers, know that if you see the a heading that says introduction or literature review, that means it's an older style of paper. And as soon as I have new sample papers, I will put them up, but it takes me a little bit. I might also try to reformat one or two papers to fit. It just depends what I'm able to get through. So be aware as you're looking at sample papers that sometimes, especially if you look at the dates, the last time I looked at them, the last time I edited something, you might see that it's been a while and it might not be completely accurate, because I do try to tweak and constantly get better in this course. So when you write your paper, you will have, the first thing you'll have is the title of your paper, and then you'll have, under that, you'll have a paragraph that I am switching the name of this. I used to have a roadmap paragraph and then a background paragraph. I'm mashing them together into what I'm calling an on-ramp paragraph. And I got this term from Dr. Sitnick. And I really like the idea because it is about getting just like on an on-ramp onto a highway, your goal is to get up to speed so that you can safely merge with traffic. It's really hard to merge into a lane if you're going 35 miles an hour and traffic is going 70 miles an hour. And so this is where you're trying to get the reader up to speed and engaged. You're trying to get them kind of onboarded with you. So here, the first paragraph, you're trying to convince them that your topic matters. You are sort of stating the purpose of your paragraph. It's this weird mix because on the one hand, you do anticipate that they have read the abstract, but you also treat the abstract as a standalone document. So you pretend that they haven't. So here, you'll start with 1 to 2 sentences that are trying to engage readers. And that can be difficult for students to learn how to do. So let me actually peek and see if I still have some of these up. Let's take a moment and look at how other authors start this. And you can certainly, this is the sort of thing, look at your articles, see how your authors do this. We are trying to mimic article writing style. So this author starts with, storybooks are a common medium for entertaining and educating pre-reading children. And then they start talking about how kids learn through being read storybooks. Best-selling storybooks provide ample emotion learning opportunities, averaging 7 to 8 emotion references in the text and 32 emotion displays. So they're trying to convince us that storybooks are important, that kids learn through them, and that there's a lot of emotions in them. These emotion portrayals are important because research suggests that blah, 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 distressed, calm, or exciting. So in this paragraph, they haven't really told us their purpose yet. Again, I think they're kind of assuming that we will know that from their title and their abstract, or they're building up to it. There is certainly a place. They have the present study. Not every article has this, but they do. So they have a section specifically devoted to explaining the purpose of their study. In this case, you're not to the study yet, and your present study paragraph comes right at the end of the introduction as well. But one thing I am having you do that's a little bit more scholarly is to, in your first paragraph here, specifically discuss the purpose of your paper or the main point, the argument that you're trying to make. And it's important that you figure out not just theme 1 and theme 2, but also a bigger picture idea that you're driving toward. And this is challenging, and it's supposed to be challenging. It's not hard just for the sake of being hard. It's hard because this is a hard thing to do. But it's an important thing to do, to not just summarize things, but to really say what they mean taken together and why other people should care. I'm looking for at least 2 sources in every paragraph in this introduction. So here I'm really looking for a source in your first 1 to 2 sentences, and I'm realizing that I guess I'll do 1 to 2. I'll write out the numbers both places because I want to be consistent. So it's kind of 1 to 2 sentences, 1 big sentence, 1 to 2 more sentences. So first, you're trying to grab attention without being flashy or emotional appeal or we've all experienced blah 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 blah. You're keeping that more that more distant tone, that more academic tone. But even in the article that we looked at, and I can make this a little smaller, they're keeping that more distant tone. But when they say storybooks are a common medium for entertaining and educating pre-reading children, I'm still thinking of reading books with my kid or with my nieces and nephews, or the books that I read as a child. I guess I wouldn't be pre-reading at that time, but even though it's said in a neutral way, it still reminds me of those more emotional things. Let's see, I haven't actually looked at this one yet. This was another example from APA. So let's see. In recent years, medical dramas such as Emergency Room, I have never heard ER called Emergency Room. Emergency Room, Grey's Anatomy, or House MD found a broad viewership in the TV-watching Western world. These series not only spur pure entertainment, but also provide some knowledge on diseases. And somewhere here, where do they start? Okay, so they start formal citations down here. I would have liked to see it up a little higher. But you still get the idea that it still has that more academic tone, but it's introducing the topic. And then it's using some evidence, numbers, percentages, to help convince you that their points are valid and that you should care about the article they're reading. As you get down further, you're going to start giving more similar to, I don't know what I just did. That's what I wanted to do. That's not the one I wanted to click. So over here, they start moving into basic information very quickly, which is common. So you see in these 2 examples, the one about House MD, that one stays a little more in the kind of numbers game. These things are a big deal. These are happening. We should pay attention to them. Whereas this article doesn't start with, here's how many storybooks are published a year, and here's how many books on average children are read in their first 3 years of life. They're not going that way. They're focusing much more quickly on research findings, on the importance. Partly that's probably because storybooks are a bit more of an already researched topic than medical dramas. So you can see, there's not quite one size fits all, but there's a lot of similar patterns. So what's important here, I'm going to be looking for source, purpose statement, which doesn't need to be cited because it's your purpose, your idea, and then another source that's transitioning us into the big ideas for your paper. One of the big goals of the concept map is to help you come up with 2 main themes for your paper. So you've got theme 1, and I actually want you to replace this with your heading. So let me see if we look at this. Again, this first paragraph is just different. I might try to transform this and make it more appropriate for how it's supposed to look, just to be helpful. But down here, you see, and you can even just delete this, and you can say evolutionary theory, and then you can say birth order research designs, and it should be bold with all important words in capitalized, just like any title case, because that's how it's going to show up in your paper. I'm going to leave it the original way just to be clear, because the whole goal is to help y'all. Now I have to find, this is where I want to be. No, that is not where I want to be. This is where I want to be. And a good top heading title is about 1 to 5 words long. You want to be very clear about what it is. You want to avoid repetition. And a lot of the APA style guide information can help you write a good heading. So in your concept map, you figured out 3 sources that would go with each topic, with each heading. Now you break those into specific paragraphs. So you'll want to have at least 2 different sources in each paragraph, and make sure that you still have at least 3 total for each heading or theme. And the reason I'm so persnickety about this is because if I don't require specific numbers to be hit, what I find is that even my best student writers tend to give me a serial book report, which is a series of summaries of individual articles. And that's the easiest way to go about it. It's always going to feel like the most logical way to group ideas is how they're already grouped. And I want you instead to break the articles down and then build them back together to make something new. It's like you're making a patchwork quilt out of existing material. And you're kind of taking the sections that work for the design you want to do, and you're stitching it all together and trying to make it look like it was always meant to fit that way, even if it was very difficult to fit that way. So you're going to have at least 4 sources here. And what I recommend is that you first work on getting your sources in place and then work on the topic sentences. I care more about summary topic sentences than about transitions, but I do want it to feel, so I would focus first on your topic sentences, and then I would think about how to make it clear that you're transitioning from one to the other. Sometimes it's helpful, and this might be something you do more in your, as you pull it over into a draft in paragraph style, but you might add an idea on to the end of one paragraph that sort of leads on to the next one. But you also want this, sometimes I'll get a sentence on the second one that doesn't, kind of ignores the existence of the first paragraph in a way that can make things confusing. So make sure that you're adding context and that it feels like everything is supposed to flow from one to the other. This is not an easy or natural process in most papers. It's something you have to wrestle with quite a bit. So make sure you leave time for it, and know that the Writing Center is there to help you at any stage. And it's up to you. I have requirements for when you go for your first one, but after your first appointment, it's really up to you up until the final paper where you go. So if you feel stuck at this outlining stage, it's a great time to go to the Writing Center. You can also come to office hours, but the Writing Center often has better availability than I do, especially last minute. I think they usually require 24 hours notice, but it's still more than what I can offer usually. Theme 2, you will do basically the same thing. You make sure that you have a clear distinction between the 2 themes and that you can explain to me how they're different. Why a bullet point would go here rather than up here. Sometimes the paragraphs feel very, if it feels too repetitive, then you might need to go back and reorganize a little bit. This section should not feel as repetitive. There are lots of the paper that are meant to repeat and summarize. Partly that feels repetitive because you're so familiar with it. Partly it's because this is a very short paper, but I'm having you do all the repetition and summary that you would normally do in a longer paper. So keep all of that in mind. If it feels really repetitive in this particular outline, then you might not have the organization quite as clear as it needs to be. And when I'm approving concept maps, I'm mostly looking just to see that you have 3 sources, 2 themes. And I'm mostly leaving it up to you to tell me that things aren't going well. So if you're sitting here doing the outline and everything just feels to go in circles, then definitely, turn something in on time just to have something in, but also get help from me, from the Writing Center, from your roommate, from your mom, from somebody in your life. And this is a difficult step, but it's also a really fun, puzzly step. And I especially love watching the aha moments for people. So I am very happy to meet if you're getting stuck doing this outline. I also want to say, I think this is the single hardest assignment in the entire class, except maybe the paraphrase writing assignment. or a paraphrase writing sample, because that's the very first time you're trying to write academically. But this one, you are pulling together, you're organizing, you're trying to make it make sense when you're taking the pieces and acting like they always fit together when they weren't designed to fit together. You just, took them and pushed them and smushed them until they did. It's also really cool because this is the place where you really express your individuality as a writer in the way that you see the relationships and what you want to emphasize in the relationships among the ideas. Because you and I can both start with your article notes and come up with completely different outlines, and that is just so cool to me. And it's one of my very favorite things about this process. So I would be thrilled to help you with this if you are stuck. And honestly, things move very, very quickly from here, so get help immediately if this stage is not going well. Anything else I need to tell you? Check your citations. Make sure that you are bringing citations over. Make sure that you're looking at feedback. Sometimes it seems like students go back to their article notes and don't check and copy and paste what's there, but don't look at the feedback that I've given in Blackboard. And that gets me very grumpy when I look at something and know that I have made suggestions on it before, and it's just the same way it was before. Yeah, I get real grumpy when I see that. So make sure you're getting all the most recent information. Also, another thing that you have to start looking for here is to make sure that all 6 articles get mentioned somewhere in these 5 paragraphs. You need all 6 of your articles to be in there. It's fine to have more than 2 ideas. It's wonderful. And some of my examples that I include go above and beyond this article, the requirements of this paper in several ways. But my best papers go beyond the minimums here. These are the minimums you need to do well in the class. To earn the full points for each one. Another thing, after you've organized all of your supporting ideas, then do your topic sentences, because you want to make sure your topic sentence is where you explain to the reader why this paragraph exists and what the ideas you're about to tell them have in common and what they mean taken together. So if you're if you're kind of stretching things a little bit logically why they're grouped together, a really good topic sentence can help with that process quite a bit. On the flip side, if there are no topic sentences, I almost always have to dock significant points for things about feeling how well integrated ideas were, because you're telling me individual ideas in a row, but not telling me what they have in common. I also almost dock points related to main ideas versus details, because you're giving me lists of details without pulling out the main idea. And there's also a place where I talk about, really asserting yourself beyond the sources that you're citing. So I almost always dock at least those 3 areas if there are weak or missing topic sentences. So you lose points for not having topic sentences, and then you also tend to lose points in those writing areas because that's the magic that these topic sentences do. Headings help with that as well. You want headings that make it clear why these 2 or more paragraphs are together. I would say, honestly, for the outline, just start with the basics and then check to see any sources that you haven't used yet. Think about where you can fit them in. Another piece is, keep in mind, you are not limited to what's in your article notes. So this is part of why I had you write keywords for each one, because I wanted to make it easier for you to remember what else was hiding in that article so that you can go back and look for things. So, if there's an article that you didn't use and what you have written down doesn't really work anywhere, you can start skimming through that article again, looking for topics for findings, again, looking in the discussion section and conclusion typically for findings and ideas that are going to fit with what you're already writing about. Okay. So once you finish this assignment, you've got a good chunk of your paper done. You just have to transition it over into paragraphs. I will do my best to give feedback on these as quickly as I can because it's often a bit of a time crunch, but also keep in mind I'm often giving feedback on just is the basic structure good? And I might look at, one or two of the topic sentences and just kind of spot check and try to give you some feedback. You're also going to be doing, as you transition this into a draft, then you're going to get peer feedback. So make sure you're using a mix, you're using both of those sources of feedback effectively. And again, you're going to be going to the Writing Center at some point during this process. And you can go more than 2 times. You are welcome to go as often as you find it helpful. I think that's all you need for this right now. Good luck. Again, if it feels hard, it's because it is hard. And take good care. Bye-bye.